Hello, everybody. Welcome to our NITRO workshop today on SMS texting. Brand new feature we have available in NITRO Studio. I am going to give it another few seconds to have some more folks pop in. I see there's a couple more joining as I speak, a lot of familiar faces, so that's great. Thanks for coming back. As always, my name is James Restivo from Canyon Software. And there, as always, there is a questions box in the panel, the GoToWebinar panel. So if you have a question at any point in time, go ahead and pop it in there, and we'll try to get it answered as best we can during the webinar. So there should be time today for questions and answers if we need to about the tool, about the settings and whatnot. So it should be fairly straightforward. It's a really cool feature. So I'm really excited to show it to you guys. Just kind of brief overview of what SMS testing is all about. So the texting piece is an alternative to, basically an alternative to emailing, right? So you have the send mail function in the NITRO workshop tool, or NITRO workflow tool. You have the send mail function and custom actions. Now, in addition to the send mail actions, you're going to also have the capability of sending SMS texting. This is available in our Office 365 environment now. So if you go and update your NITRO to the latest, you should see it. It will be coming to on-prem in the not too distant future. Of course, we want to keep those two sides of the coin aligned as much as possible, but we released it for Office 365 first, so it should be coming to on-premises a little bit down the line. But it's a really cool feature. The outgoing piece especially is really great. You could just go and send a quick notification. And then there's also an incoming piece we'll talk about as well. For the outgoing, like, why would you want to send an SMS text versus an email? Well, you can send an email, but a lot of people have their email inboxes totally chock full of all sorts of stuff, promotions, NITRO workshop emails. I'm sure you get a lot of those, and all sorts of other paraphernalia, like all sorts of other things that come through. So sending a text could be another way to do this. And yeah, I'm not getting a couple of comments. I'm not showing my screen just yet. I'm just kind of talking through what SMS texting is all about. So I will be sharing my screen in just a moment. Thank you for reminding me I'm going to need to do that eventually. Yes, I'm not sharing my screen yet. But so you want to maybe alert someone. Why would you use SMS texting? Well, you want to alert someone maybe immediately. There's a high priority issue that's come through. There's a high priority work order that's come through. And things like that. So you'll want to alert individuals immediately that something needs to be done. So sending a alert to a phone may be a better way of doing that than sending it to an email and hoping that they happen to be looking at their email inbox at that moment in time. Now, of course, sending it to a phone too has its own, they have to be looking at the phone or have the notifications turned on and whatnot. But those are human things that we can't really control. All we can do is give you the best platform or the best options for getting communications out from the tool and getting communications back into the tool. So, all right, so I am going to go ahead and share my screen now. Yeah, at this point, let me know if you're not seeing it. So let me go ahead. All right, so I'm just going to be sharing kind of a general site, but then I'm also going to switch over to this Twilio tool. And this is one of the prerequisites for having the communication. We need to have some kind of phone number to send the messages to or receive the messages from. And that is kind of similar, conceptually, you can think of that as something similar to an email box. You need some kind of email inbox to receive and send email messages. Well, in this case, you need a phone number to receive and send text messages. And it's not, I don't think there is a way to set up your own phone to do that with this system, but we've developed this Twilio integration. When you sign up for Twilio, you'll get you'll have an opportunity to get a number. You can buy multiple numbers, so you can have a few different things going on. But this is the website I'm showing you. You can go. It's a third party outside what we're offering, but it's a fairly reasonably priced, and we're talking 0.75 cents, 3/4 of a cent per message. to go through, so both incoming and outgoing. So we're not talking a lot of money here. So it's a pretty reasonably priced product. But I just want to point out that this is where you're going to need to start the process. You want to go create your Twilio account, get your phone number in place, and then you'll be able to go from there. And there's a couple other things you're going to need. I'll show you where to put them into the Crocaning tool, into the NITRO site settings. There's a SID, account SID, they call it, and there is a auth token. So two different things that you have to put in there. I'm just going to show you on this generic site here. We don't have it configured, so I'll just kind of show you how you do it. You get to your site settings, and you go over to your Crocaning and NITRO site settings. And you'll see there's a new option here for Twilio SMS API connection settings, and there's those two pieces of information I was talking about, the account SID and the auth token. These are both, once you create your Twilio account, these are both going to be very, obviously presented in there, so you don't have to go and dig around for them. So it will be something you can pick up and put in there pretty easily. So pick up get that information from your Twilio account, copy and paste it in here. You can test that connection, and then you can save it. At that point, you're good to go for sending messages from NITRO, from NITRO workflows and from custom actions. But there is one other piece you might want to configure, and this is kind of optional, kind of not, depending on your situation. The Azure Active Directory connection settings, this is something you'll want to set up if you're trying to pull in a user's mobile phone from their Active Directory record. Now, if you're going in and setting up a process where you're directly entering the person's phone number, and that's fine, you can do that. You don't necessarily need to set this up at that point. But if you're going to be using like a person or group columns where you need to go and dig into that user's record and say, okay, they have they have a mobile number associated with that account, you would need to go and get that from Active Directory, and this is allowing NITRO to do that. So this is sort of semi-optional. Kind of depends on how you have things set up. But,
James, you're talking about like if someone, like if there's a new ticket and the person puts the phone number and just puts the person's name on it. Like say I'm a requester filling out a new ticket. I don't necessarily want to put my cell phone, but you're saying AD knows my cell phone number. So when the ticket's submitted, that AD connection will go out to get my phone number because I'm the requester. Therefore, I can use it in SMS texting, like as a placeholder in the texting that's going out.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to, we'll show that when we get to the sending it out, what the setup looks like for sending it out. We can get into that. But yeah, that's exactly right. And the idea is that we know the person's name, we know their account, but we don't know necessarily their phone number directly. We can go and pull that information from Active Directory.
Right, so they don't have to type it into every ticket every time.
Exactly.
It's just their name note. It's part of their AD account. Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. And that being said, you make a good point, because a lot of times in our ticketing systems, we have a way to pull in the user's phone number. We could even use that field directly. I'm just giving you options in case you don't want to set this up. There are ways to do it, but you just have to be able to have that phone number somehow directly available. Otherwise, if you want to dig into that AD account and not necessarily have that number on the form, you'd have to set this up to do that. So that's what this is. Okay. So those are kind of the prerequisites to getting it moving, get the outgoing going. So then the next step in the process would be to set up a workflow or incorporate the SMS text action in your workflow. And so when you come over to NITRO workflows, it's going to be just another action. It will be another action available to you in that list of actions. So if you come down here, you see new action. And send SMS text, it's right there under send mail, so it's right there available. I've already configured this one. I'm going to go ahead and show that to you. And the text action settings, it's pretty straightforward. If you're familiar with our tools, it should be nothing too crazy. Give the action some kind of name. The to field, so very similar to what you can do with emails, you can choose to send to a user or group. This is again where that AD integration will come into play. if you're just simply pulling a user record into there, or if you're pulling that information from a person or group column, you would need to pull it. Or you can directly put a phone number or even a placeholder in here to get that phone number. So in this case, I've directly put in my phone number, so you can see that there. And then there's the from address. So this is the Twilio number that we have set up. So you're not going to see this here. And actually, let me back up for a second and go back to this site and show you what's going to happen if you don't have the Twilio integration set up yet. I'll show you what it says. And if I do a new workflow, I also have to select some list. Do issue tracker here. And I'll select some setting there and do SMS text. And then you'll see what happens is you get a reminder at the top. You don't have your SMS API connection configured yet. Please specify a NITRO configurations page. Of course, there's a link over to it, and it goes back to where I was showing you before for that Twilio SMS API integration. So we're actually getting a couple of questions about the Twilio integration. Does it need to be configured at the environment level, or does it need to be set up at a site level? It does need to be set up at the site level. This is a site settings situation scope to the site specifically, so it would need to be set up in each one, but all you need to do is come into each one of those sites, hit copy paste of your account SID and auth token, and save the settings, and you're off and running. So that's what's going to make that connection between your site and the Twilio number that you want to use for your workflows. So there, I don't know if you want to use the same number over and over for different things, especially when it comes to incoming. It's going to be tricky to have the same number across the board for multiple sites. You probably don't want to do that. That's where having one site, one site per Twilio number might make more sense, because if you're using the incoming piece, outgoing may not matter as much. You just have to copy and paste the settings across, but incoming, I could see being a problem if you have multiple, or if you have a single number for multiple incoming processes.
Yeah, James, we just looked that up. It was only $1 per month for an extra phone number.
Yeah, exactly, and plus the per message usage,
yeah.
which is again, like I said, 1/4 cent. So
yeah, it's ridiculously low, but
yeah, exactly. You have to send a lot of message before it becomes meaningfully expensive. But yeah, so that's so we can do that, and then the other question we had. Will NITRO site configurations, AD connection settings have stuff there if we already have it set up? No, it's really just about granting permissions here. So that's what the AD connection is. If you've granted it already, actually, I don't know if I've done that. I'm not going to do it in this demo just in case I get messed up with it. But we'll go ahead and test that out and let you know. But there should, I think hitting grant permissions again is not going to cause any harm if you've already done it before. So, yeah. But yeah, so that's that. The couple of questions we've had come in so far. Just to complete out the comments here, we could do your numbers. So this is going to list all those numbers, like Scott was saying. You could have multiple numbers, so you just go through and select whichever number makes the most sense. You have an option in Twilio to choose numbers that are local. So if you're in New York City and you only want to see New York City numbers, you could do that. If you're in Washington, DC, you only want to see a Washington, DC number, you could do that too. Might help with charges and long distance stuff if you're worried about that. But yeah, you could put once you list out your numbers, you choose basically the geography of that number, and then you can choose one of those numbers from this drop down here. As far as the body of the text, now we're talking about text here. We're not talking about a big, massive communication with rich text and bolding and italicized font and all that good stuff. We're talking about something pretty simple and straightforward. And you can see right here, it's going to get truncated if it's beyond 600 characters. It'll just automatically get chopped down. And you won't see the whole message if you try to put in a message more than that. And what you see here is a couple of placeholders. So we've taken a couple of placeholders, put them in there. We can add other placeholders like, IDs are in there, but we could add ID in there. You can see it just updates it directly. And of course, we could put in, just type in our own text anywhere we want in the box. So yeah, so you can put in your own text. You can get your take your placeholders and put them in there. So that's going to help drive what that communication is to the person receiving this notification. We also have an option here to log messages. So that's kind of neat, where you could go and make an audit of everything that's been sent from the system, rather than, because once it goes out from the system, without that log, you don't really know what's happened. You have to go to the end user and say, hey, did you get that text? And yeah, you don't know if they did or not. This will give you a way to kind of help manage that and say, okay, yeah, we know that went out because we have a log of that text going out, and that helps with auditing purposes. So, if that person becomes unavailable or their phone number gets, phone gets replaced, et cetera, a lot of different reasons you might want to do that. So I encourage you to log messages when you can. Every time, basically, to make sure that they went out from the system. But yeah, that's a pretty simple text box here for that. And just to show you that it does work, we're going to go ahead and do a quick test on this one. So this was on our brands list. Let me get back over to that. And back to here, go to my brands list. So this one was a simple workflow to just create anytime the text, anytime item is created in this list, we'll go ahead and send a text. So I'm going to put in just the title field, and we have the ID field that's automatically generated by SharePoint. So the title field can be new product, Azure, that's just one of the ones we have, Azure AD API integration. So that's one of our, presumably a product or a brand or whatever. Hit save. Now we'll see if this works. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to share my webcam for a moment. And I'll show you if you can see it. If everyone can see my webcam, here's my phone. And there's the message I just sent to myself with it does tell you sent from your Twilio account. We do have a trial account, that's why it's saying trial. But you see it has, this is a test, was part of my text in the workflow. Azure AD API integration was part of the what I wrote in the title, and then it's got the ID of the item and the Crookinian.com address. So that is there. You can see it came right through. I'm gonna stop sharing my webcam. And that's
I like that shirt, James. I like that NITRO Studio shirt.
I knew I was doing this workshop today, so I made sure I dressed appropriately. But yeah, so that's the outgoing. It's pretty simple like that. So outgoing is, it sends it out and then the person can reply. So to get the reply coming back in and get the incoming set up, you'll notice that we've in our email sync tool, and you should see this if you go and update NITRO anytime. Actually, I don't know if you have to update NITRO as a matter of fact, but if you do, you'll see this change in the name of the product to email and text sync instead of just email sync. You'll still have the email sync settings at the top, but then you'll see a new setting down here for the SMS text settings. And I'll go ahead and go through this one we've already had set up. And you can choose where they go. So similar to incoming emails, you might want to have a list to receive the text, and then a workflow to process those and update another list, perhaps. And for where you map the stuff, you really just need to map the phone number where it's coming from. So this is the sender of that text. There's the body. What's the body of that text? There's you could track what the Twilio number is if you want. So I put that in there. You can track when it was received, which is basically going to be the same as when it was created, but you can put that in there. And then there's a unique message ID, which I'll show you on it's kind of a long ID. Might be useful in some scenarios. I just went ahead and stored it just in case we needed it. And we had a question about the lazy approval process. Right on time. I'm going to show a little bit about what you can do with parsing. So when you're talking about like a lazy approval process or any kind of incoming process, you need to have a way to parse that information that's coming in from the text. So there's keywords you could use. You could have keywords in there, maybe as part of the communication that goes to that end user. You can say, please reply with approve to approve this request. Please reply with deny to deny, of course. Or please reply with some, what we might call an action verb of some sort to do something. And we're going to be able to provide, maybe not today on this call, but shortly, a regular expression to help parse that. And if you just do the action verb and the ID of the item, we can parse that, put that into a SharePoint list item, and then take action on it. And I'll kind of show you what that means. So if we do custom here, you'll see you get that regular expression option, and we'll be able to provide that. But there's also an option here where we could do a regular expression directly and say, okay, I want to take some information from there, use the regular expression, and put the information that I've extracted from there into the that list column, whatever it might be. So that could be two different columns. You got the a place to store the verb and a place to store the ID. Now, based on those two pieces of information, you could use query lists and other functions in NITRO workflows to go and say, okay, get all the items with that ID, which there should be one. And then if it says if the body equals approve, then go and mark it as approved. If body says deny, go ahead and mark it as denied. So it's pretty straightforward to set up, as a matter of fact. So you map the information into those fields, body into whatever the right expression is. You can do that, multi-line or single, and basically it's putting a value into that field, and then you're developing your workflow to work on top of that. So you could do something like where you come in here and update list item, or do like a query list to start. Just kind of show that in brief. You could do a query list where you're saying, go get all the items that have matched that ID. Well, I could probably set something like that up pretty quick. Hang on. So if we're in here, I can add a column. Let's call it let's see, single line of text related. Something like that. Related ID number. Probably could be a lookup. It doesn't even have to be a lookup. And then you can have another field here for your action verb. And that's going to give you a couple places to put that information. Let me cancel all this and get back into it. And then we can enable parsing. We can go to our custom, and we can go to mapping and say, okay, we're going to do related ID number is ID. And of course, that's not what the regular expression is. We'll get that to you. And then there's another one we could do, action verb, right? So it's something like that. Whatever the regular expression actually is, we'll make sure you get the right one in there. But it basically takes that parsing of the body, puts it into that field, takes the parsing of it, puts whatever it finds into that field, and then now you can go to your workflow tool and make sure. Did I save that? I didn't actually save that. I don't think it matters. But go into your workflow field and just to create a new workflow, like update the item as approved, or update item with decision. And we're going to run this on our incoming text list. We're going to do item is created. So anytime that text comes in, we'll do like a query list, query QL IDs. We get one item. We're going to get them from some other list like brands, let's say. And it's going to be based on, you can do a query builder where the ID of brands equals, what was the field? It was related ID number. Of course, with the proper syntax and all that in there. That's not quite right because I didn't put all the percent in, with the X0020 for the spaces and whatnot. That was my bad. I should have created it without spaces. But anyway, basically the idea is you're going to compare the ID field that came in that's on this brands list and compare it to the ID field that is in the text that came in. And now we can take some action on it. So now we've got the item, we found it. We're going to continue only if we find an item. Otherwise, what's the point? And then we can go and take an action to update it and say, approve or mark with decision, whatever the decision might be. So we use our query list QLIDs, and then we can go and say whatever that field is. Let's say some field, I don't have it in here. Some field like that, we'll just update it with whatever the action verb is, and then that could take further action on it, that kind of thing. So there's multiple ways you can do it. I'm just kind of showing you a skeleton of an example of what that might look like for doing an approval, a lazy approval process with text coming in. So, in a few minutes, you can see you can kind of set something up that'll do something based on that text that's come into the system. So further on in the process on here, you can do filtering. It's really the other thing here. And then you'll see all the Twilio phone numbers here that you have set up based on that account. Again, we're connecting to that auth token and was it account SID. So those will appear here, and then you can put some filters around it. So you could even say the from phone number could be only certain ones can convert. Only certain ones start with. So I was doing this earlier where only like Connecticut phone numbers, maybe some California phone numbers, things like this. So you could restrict it geographically even based on numbers that are coming through. Say only Washington DC numbers can come through, and then you could even block particular ones or does not start with and say, okay, anything from the 4015 area code definitely cannot come through. So a few different things that you can do there. You can also put some other parameters around that. And I think there's the pattern option, which again, I think you'd use that regular expression functionality in here to determine what that pattern should be as what should be blocked or should be allowed. And then the other thing to know is once you configure your settings here for this, you can, your changes will take 10 to 20 minutes to take effect. So don't expect it to happen right away, but it will happen eventually within 20 minutes to do that. So get that all set up, get it saved into your system, and then you can start sending in text. You can see we've done a few texts here. I'm just gonna share my screen again real quick or share my webcam, I should say, and put another text into the system. Let's write it up here. Show workshop example. So I go ahead and share my webcam. Okay, there we go. Oops, okay, a little backwards there. So there is NITRO workshop example. I haven't hit send yet. I'm gonna hit send. There, sent through. And then all we need to do is wait for it to appear here, which takes about 2 minutes or so to actually come through. I'm gonna turn off my webcam now. And hopefully this will do the job. But like I said, it does take a minute or two. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, any questions that we haven't covered yet? Scott?
No, there haven't been any new questions. Basically, there was the outgoing and there's the incoming.
Mm-hmm.
Both required having that Twilio account, which you show, just set it up on Twilio. Outgoing seems very straightforward in that you just go to create a new action in workflows or custom action and put in the body you want to put with some placeholders and what phone number you want to use and who just like anything, like sending email, who you're going to send it to and all that. And like I said, the sender can be, the send to could be a number from the form that you just filled out, the requester just filled out, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
and then the incoming is a little bit more to set up just because you have to understand what the incoming text says. And so it's a matter of putting certain standards into place for, usually what happens is you put, when the outgoing, you'd say text back approve with the ID or something. And if you approve this or deny, text back to approve or deny. I think people are used to that. Don't you think in texting that, like I get these things like, text stop to unsubscribe from this service, or text reply, or usually it's all capitals too. We call those the action verbs, right? The verbs that are all in cap, approve ID 25 or approve number 25 or something, close this ticket or change, it has to be certain protocol or certain kind of understanding that is out there of what the incoming text should say. It isn't anything automatic. Because we were thinking, well, what if we just parse the body for approve? And I said, well, what if somebody says, I do not approve this, right? The word approve is in there. So you have to have a certain kind of syntax that works, right? So we were kind of trying to follow that normal one of an action verb, like approve in all capitals, followed by a space, followed by a ticket number. I mean, that's one idea. And the reg expression can parse that out quite easily. And we're going to put that in as a standard function in the incoming text setup is to say the default reg expression looks for a first word in capital letters, or it doesn't even have to be capital, but basically a first word with a space and then a ID after it. And that reg expression would parse that out as the default, but it could easily be changed by a simple reg expression to read a different syntax if that's what you prefer. So we'll have the kind of default syntax of the standard text verbs, and then there'll be a reg expression capability to change it to whatever you want, because there may be other ways you want to communicate, have the incoming text be communicated to the system. And then after that, it kicks off the workflow. And I think that's really cool, where it kicks off the workflow, enormous capability to leverage off or spring off that action verb that's in the incoming text, right, James?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can key off of that text and you key off that verb and run different processes based on what that does. Prove, deny. That's probably one of the more common scenarios that we're going to see. But there are definitely other things you could do. You could close tickets from the field. You could open tickets from the field. One thing, one example I was doing for incoming was reporting situations from the field. If you have facilities team, people out and about, or even just not even facilities team, but just people out and about, and they notice an issue. Hey, there's a pothole in the parking lot. There's the lawn in front of the building needs a mow. You can submit in. You have all your users submit in work orders in that way. Say, hey, I see a problem. See something, say something, right? I see water staining. Can send it in. I see.
How about that? Yeah, text pothole. Text pothole. Text pothole to number so and so, and you could actually run a workflow on pothole, the word pothole, if you want.
Yeah, you could. That's right. Yeah, depending on how you parse it out, what you're expecting your users to send in, you could figure out a flow to manage that.
I suppose you could do 2 words too, like text lost dog or something. Lost face dog. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
There's actually a book. There's a book called Mastering Regular Expressions by Pearl. It was O'Reilly. The O'Reilly book. What are those books that all those books, Mastering Regular Expressions, and fascinating reading if you're totally into nerd work. But anyways, there's a lot you can do with regular expressions that is fun to parse out the verbiage and get the components. And then once you parse it out, you put it into the column, into a field on the column, and then it's just like any other workflow. You're reading a field in the column in the list. You're reading a field in the list that had been populated by the incoming text. By parsing the incoming text, we populate fields in the incoming text list, and then we run workflows on that can take action, because the text message has been parsed out into its particular components, and therefore we can run it on those particular components to understand what the incoming message is supposed to kick off and do, right?
Right. Exactly.
I like the lost dog one. What do you think about that?
Well, that's good. I was just gonna say, you get like citizen complaints. You get all sorts of things with this.
Yeah, it's really wide open.
Yeah, it really does open it up quite a bit. As long as the person has that number, they can text into it, and you got a record of that communication, and whatever you need to do with it, you can do with it. So we did get a question. Do you have any general information about security on these configurations? Looking at the redaction page on Twilio site, and security teams will want to know about that. You're probably right. I don't have a lot of information on the security of Twilio at the moment. It is a third-party tool. It's well integrated. I know with Microsoft, I've seen like Twilio apps for Teams and things like that. It is a SaaS solution though, so it is something you're kind of relying on their setup and their security to some degree. So I don't have a lot more to say to it than that, unfortunately.
Well, James, sorry to interrupt, but I would say it's kind of the gold standard these days. You know, it's what almost every large organization. In fact, if you're getting text automatically on your cell phone, most likely they're using Twilio for it.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. You know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it is a first-class text platform for automated processes, and it's not just used by
Exactly.
Microsoft. That's good. That's a good
Oh,
point.
it's used very widely, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm sure they have all that. I don't know. I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that it's secure. It's got to be secure. I don't have that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's a great question, and we could, if the person asking, we could send information or direct to the Twilio site. How they secure it, encrypt it.
yeah, exactly.
Exact details of that. But
Yeah, I'm sure they have it up here. So we could poke around and
it's
figure it out.
absolutely a concern these days. It's no,
Yeah.
it's not just a frivolous question. It's absolutely, with all the things going on. But we live in a cloud-based world, and we hope these SaaS providers such as Twilio, as well as Microsoft Office 365, are holding themselves to a very high standard of security. And that's, we just use their service, and we select the services we think are the best of the breed when we do that. And so hopefully they fulfill their promise in that direction, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that pretty much I think covers it. If anyone else has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. I'm just going over to our website, kind of talk about upcoming stuff. So as far as workshops, there's one today. Next one we're going to be talking about basically all the stuff we've released over the past 3 to 6 months or so. I know we touch on things here and there, but just want to go through kind of a compendium of the different things that we've developed with NITRO over the last few months, and just kind of walk through that. And if you have any questions on those things, like the ID column, we'll revisit a few other things like that. Maybe a few other minor features, like we made some tweaks. Yeah, since we did our button UI workshop, there's actually been some tweaks to the associated item UI, but for buttons. So I might talk about that as well. Just little things like that didn't necessarily warrant a workshop unto themselves, but are still good for our NITRO user base to be aware of and know about and understand better. So we might want to schedule that for a little bit longer than 45 minutes on June 30th, but we'll talk about the stuff, kind of everything that you might find use out of it in NITRO that was developed over the last 6 months or so. There's that, and then there's some other webinars coming up, right?
Yeah. We're doing a summer breeze series, we're calling it. So because it's a breeze to make a leave request, it's a breeze to make an expense reimbursement or project task management. Just to give people a sense of what you can do in NITRO Studio when you get that NITRO Studio platform, which I think a lot of you already have. Then you can just easily build. So it's kind of a demo of like, do this with the form and that with the form and put in this workflow. It's like we do all day anyway. So we thought we'd show it, and people who are not used to NITRO Studio could see like, oh yeah, that is really easy to use to replace whatever business process they want to automate, replace an outdated process and automate new ones if they want to do that. We also have a lot of cool stuff's going to come out soon. We're working on a workflow designer. We have that in beta right now. And if anybody's in government, yeah, that's a bit, actually, I should not just gloss over that because it's going to show it's like a visual interface to creating a workflow or custom action. It's really exciting. We hope to have that ready, and well, it's hard to say when, but by the end of summer, if not sooner.
Yeah, no, our guys are working really hard on that one, and they're making really good progress. So that should, I'd like to get that out sooner rather than later for sure. But
we're pushing it, but yeah, we're working on it every day. And the other thing is we're moving into the GCC. If anybody's in government, a GSA schedule and the GCC high. So we're getting a lot of government business going these days. So a lot going on in NITRO Studio, at Crow Canyon, which is NITRO Studio.
Yeah,
kind of one and the same these days, right?
Yeah, kind of component. Yeah, exactly. But yeah. Well, I guess that's about
beta
that.
testers. There we go. Yeah, that's right.
I know. I see.
I think we will. We'll be in touch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. I'd love to get and that's what we thrive on. Thrive on the feedback from the customers and what that helps helps us understand what your pain points are. You tell us what you're struggling with, and we can hopefully address it in a timely manner. So anyway, thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it, for joining the webinar, and we will be touching base with you guys soon. So appreciate
Yeah.
it. Have a great day,
Thanks,
everyone.
James. Thanks, James. Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.